I'm so excited for today's guest. Can't wait. But first, my name is Sarah Lacko, and I've always been fascinated about people's stories, their hardship, and how they've overcome those hardships coming out on the other side, turning their pain into their power. I already spit, hopefully you didn't see it. Turning their pain into their power and sometimes their passion. The true underdogs. Yeah, I'm so excited for today's guest. But first, a word from our sponsor. So the sponsor for today is the Badass Backpacking Babes and Inspired Vida. This is the Inspired Vida Show. It's a whole thing. You should see. So what this is, it's an online course teaching women how to start backpacking. They get instant access, learning about gear, setting the pace, all safety, all the things. And then we get to go on our annual backpacking retreat. We get to be empowered. We empower women through nature and adventure, the best kinds. Also, I'll stop saying, but guiding you also to that next level vibe while implementing the course that you just learned from. We will also have a badass photographer, Kari Faye, oh my gosh, joining us along to capture the whole experience and also do individual sessions of empowered in nature women, badass babes. So exciting. Okay, now on to our guest. I'm so excited for today's guest. She's a really big deal in our community. She does so many things for our community, and it's very exciting to have her on the show today. So friend, please introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
My name is Cathy Holman. A lot of people may know me as Prairie Wife. I am what I call a media personality. I have a radio show on My Country 95.5. I have a blog, prairiewifeinheels.com. I do TV appearances, and then I travel across the state and frankly, anywhere anyone wants me with speaking and MC gigs as well. And mom of 5. I think I have all that. I think that was everything.
Yeah, that's a lot. Everything is a lot. But it's so cool. I always love to watch what you're doing and then juggling your 5 kids. I have one, and so it's sometimes I can't even handle the one. So get it, girl, with those 5.
Well, you know me, I get it done sometimes. Sometimes I drop the ball. Sometimes it just doesn't get done, but I do my best, and that's all we can do as parents, whether you have 1 or 13.
Absolutely. X-nay on the 13A. No. But yeah, it's true. You do the best that you can. And, sometimes it varies from day to day, what that looks like and where you're at. So I love how you put that. So you have a story to share, and I'm super excited. Have you ever shared this story before with anyone else?
No, I'm actually really, really, really nervous about it. There's definitely some people that I'm still connected with that maybe have a better picture of this than people now. But just to put this in perspective, I'm from Milwaukee, came out to Wyoming to attend the University of Wyoming with the desire to marry a cowboy, which I did. And I've been here, I'm 40, so I've been here for 23 years. And most people that know me, especially now, know me as Prairie Wife, as this confident 40-year-old woman who's been through a lot of stuff that's gotten me here. But the story that you and I decided we were going to share, because there's a multitude to pick from, right? We all have many times in our life where we've been knocked down and have to get up, is from back in the day, middle school, grade school, a teeny bit of high school, but it really formed who I am today and what I strive to be moving forward.
Oh my gosh, yes. And for you to be sharing this story for the first time on here, that's so cool. Something too we forget, when we're watching or listening to someone's story, we forget that that's a super vulnerable thing, because it's not our thing. Sometimes I had someone that was supposed to be on the show, but then they decided not to do it just because they weren't ready to share their story yet. And it's just something that we're just oh, share your story. But then when you start to think about your story, and then you're like, wow, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happened. So I appreciate you. I appreciate your vulnerability in today's show, but also in everything that you do. You're a sharer, I'm a sharer, and it's not easy, but it's just so helpful and so great for like us, but also like great for other people. I don't know about you, but sharing helps me heal through my stuff too.
I think definitely, because a lot of times if you can share your story in an authentic way, you end up learning you're not alone, and you end up
Mm.
usually, especially with the platform that I've been blessed with, being able to help other people along their journey. So I appreciate you opening up this opportunity to me. And I think we use that word vulnerable a lot, especially Brene Brown, right? She's really put that out there. Being vulnerable is strength. And it's not just because you might cry. It's because when you share the kinks in your armor, you're giving power to someone else to come back and hurt you. And I think that that's something I'm very aware of the more and more public I've become, because there have been people that have taken advantage of that and made comments that are hurtful. But in the end, if we help one person, that's enough.
Yes. And it's kind of like empowering too. I know we're gonna get into your story in a minute, but
We
it's
promise.
yeah, we promise, exactly. It's empowering when you like own maybe that thing that you were hiding behind, that armor. I love Brene Brown, by the way. But hiding behind that armor, it takes a lot of energy. And when you're able to like, you know, break through that armor and like own who you were, own your past, own who you're going for, you know, to be as a human, you know, own in your growth, it really it can be hard. And you know, sometimes people can not say the best of things or maybe not use that in the best of ways, but it really like it does end up being empowering. It is very scary, but then it is very empowering, and it's super healing. So all right, now on to the story. I'm
The
so excited.
story.
Okay,
So,
by the way, hashtag cowboy goals, right? I
it
achieved
worked
and
out all right.
conquered.
It worked out all right.
Love it.
Considering I've been with him since I was 19, it really could have gone either way. You know what I mean?
So
But
cool. I
for
love it.
me, it worked out. Okay.
So I want
So,
to start off with like your childhood. What did it look
yeah,
like? You said you didn't grow up here.
yeah.
What was your childhood look? What did it look like?
So, as I said, a lot of people see me now confident in my own skin, someone who's willing to put herself out there. As a kid, I grew up in Milwaukee. I'm the youngest of 4 children. I have 2 brothers and an older sister. My sister is 10 years older than me and was definitely my role model. She is who I wanted to be when I grew up. But because she was 10 years older than me, when I was 7, she was gone. She went and did her own thing. She went out there, and we still connected. We're super, super close right now. But I think that I definitely felt a loss that I didn't understand when she left. I just had my 2 older brothers then. My parents got married very young. They were self-starters. When I was a kid, my dad, who's an engineer, left the workforce to start his own business. So because of that, we had no money. We always had a house, and we had enough food to eat. It was not always, you know, or ever really fresh fruit and vegetables. It was funny. I didn't realize until I was an adult. One of my favorite games to play with my mom was we would go to the grocery store and she'd say, okay, find the chunk of cheese, Wisconsin, find the chunk of cheese that's the lowest price. And whoever finds the lowest price is the winner. And I just thought it was like a fun game that we played, but it had everything to do with their budget. And I didn't put that together till I was older. We also had Salvation Army clothes, hand-me-downs. You know, we were poor, right? Like I said, always had a roof over our head, enough to eat. I definitely remember a lot of fights and conversations with my parents and stress over money. Again, as a kid, you don't understand. Now as an adult, I get it. The one thing that my parents said they were always going to spend money on was our education. So they understood. My dad is the first person out of his family of 9 from rural Minnesota farm to go to college. My mom went to college for a little bit, but ended up getting married and having kids instead. She did go back to school when I was 11, which was a huge example for me to see, but they always said education, education, education. So the little bit of money that they did have, they used to send us to private Catholic school, because in Milwaukee, that was what afforded the best education. The problem that lied with that is you have kids that are poor and we're going to a school with lots of kids that are not. And this was in the 80s, by the way. I'm 40 years old, and I was bullied relentlessly. And when I say bullied, I say things like my backpack was hidden. People would steal things and put them in my backpack and say that I had stolen them because I wanted to be like them. I was ridiculed for not having the JanSport backpack and the right shoes. I wasn't welcomed to parties. I had one friend, Nikki, who also came from a lower income family, though still like above us. And so she was my touch point, but she ended up moving because her experience was equally as traumatic. So she ended up moving to public school. We still stayed a little bit connected, but that was back in the day where you had to have people's phone numbers memorized. Like this, it just wasn't as easy to stay in contact as it is now. Like that's just the fact of it. I had one other friend that was back and forth, wishy-washy, depending on who was going to be nice to her. So it was really, really lonely. And I would go home every single day crying and asking my parents, begging them to send me to public school. And then in retrospect, like I get what they were doing. Like I understand all of it, but it was terrible. Like I got called chubby. I have really big eyes, which now is an asset, but they would call me frog eyes all the time. They said I was an alien from Venus, and like just every day relentlessly nonstop, to the point where like I'm getting emotional. First time talking about it, where like I legit thought about how it would be better if I just wasn't around. Like I was just tired of it. It was exhausting. And my parents were so good. Like they had no idea. Like they knew it was hard, but like if they watch this, they're going to be mortified. Like mortified to know that that's where it was. But like you get it, 6th, 7th grade, 8th grade girl, like no one wanted anything to do with me, and it had been like that since the age of 5. But I will say that something that my parents, which they did everything they could, and I'm obviously the person I am today because of that, but like home was a safe place. My parents loved me. My siblings loved me. I could be who I was at home and not have to be afraid that more ridicule would happen there. So that's actually something I talk about all the time. I've written posts about it on the blog. Like my home is a safe place. My kids do not come home and get name called by their siblings. They do not get home and get ridiculed if they still have a stuffed animal in their bed and other kids think they're too old. Like our home is always a safe place. And I work with 5 kids, 3 boys and 2 girls, you can imagine like there's definitely fighting, there's anger, there's kids that don't get along, but our home is a safe place because I know that's what saved me. Like that's what saved me, is my home at least was a safe place, and I was valued for who I was by my parents and by siblings. And so 8th grade, for high school, we got to go to public school because the public school in our neighborhood, it was where all the rich kids went, but because of where our house was, we got to go there too. And so that meant that my parents felt like it was a good enough school, there was enough funding that I could go and I could attend public school there. And there were other kids in our area that came from middle class families. So I went to public school, and I was terrified because I didn't know anyone. Like I'd been with the same 18 kids, again, small Catholic private school, same 18 kids from kindergarten all the way to 8th grade. But there were more people there. Like I could find my tribe. I could find people that were like me. And after all those years of not being accepted for who I was, no matter how I changed and bended, and if I did find that JanSport backpack at Salvation Army, they still somehow freaking knew that it wasn't brand new. So despite all the bending, I learned, well, I might as well just be myself because they're not going to like me anyway, right? But then going into public school where there were more people, I was being myself and people liked me. Like I wasn't popular by any means, but I knew people in every single group. People were kind to me. And of course, like you have the emotional ups and downs and the breakups and the poor decisions you make and things like that. But I never, ever, 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 ever will forget what that felt like to be tore down by the people that I just wanted to like me. And
Mhm.
so because of that, I try and use who I am and my personality to have people, when they leave my presence, leave feeling better. And that is my freaking goal in life. Like, my friends are like, you're a cheerleader. Well, frick yeah. Cause there are so many people out there tearing all of us down. Like, I don't want to be that person. Now, I have Judgy McJudgerson moments. Okay. I am not always a ray of sunshine. That is something I am working on, but I am way better at keeping the Judgy McJudgerson here, zipping my lips and remembering, like, I want people to leave my presence feeling better about themselves. I want them to turn off my radio show feeling better about themselves. I want them to go to my Prairie Wife website, read about me being exhausted and angry and screaming at my kids, and feel better because they're not alone. I don't ever want anyone to feel alone the way that I felt for so long. And that's my story. And mom and dad, if you're watching this, I'm sorry that you didn't
Well,
know.
well, and the thing is, like, too, when we're kids, like, we just give like bits and pieces, right? Like with what we're struggling with. And I mean, so many people can relate to your story. And I mean, there was even instances for me growing up where my mom now is like, I didn't even know that you were going through that, and I should have done this and I should have done that. But like, I didn't tell the whole story. And so parents are literally just doing, and we talked about this before we pressed record. Parents are literally doing the best they can with what they know and with what they know how to do. And for us, like, it's children, we, and all children, there are a lot of things that they don't talk about. And so,
Because I knew it was wrong, right?
right.
Like, I knew to feel that bad and think about those things was wrong. Like, I knew it wasn't okay.
Mhm.
I knew it wasn't okay. I knew it would hurt my parents to hear it. So you just keep quiet about it, or you just write it about it in your journal. And by the grace of God and whatever else, I just kept on. High school is going to be better. High school is going to be better, because my siblings struggled as well. So I could see their journey, and that high school was better. And also, in my mind, it was like, when I'm 18, I can do whatever I want and I can find my place. And so I just always focused on that. But I can tell you, what enabled me to do that was that my home, like I said, was a safe place. And so, like, school's hard. My kids have had
Mm.
trouble, and off and on, not as much as me. And I hope, if they are, like, I can see the cues based on my own experience. But I'm so adamant that my home is a safe place, because I know my parents saved me with that. Like, I know they did, because it was bad there, but I could always come home to a safe place. And so that's something I hope that people listen to this and take away from. There's a lot that we can feel helpless about out there. People are going to be jerks. People are jerks to me now as an adult. Like, someone just tore me apart on social media about my marriage because they read 2 sentences. Like, they're going to do that. That's what people do now. That's what people always have done, but it's just easier now. And so, make your home a safe place. Make your kids put their tech away so people can't continue to have access with them when they leave school. Like, that's another part of making your home a safe place. It's not just how you talk to your children and how you deal with conflict with your partner or your spouse, or how you teach them to deal with conflict. It's also like, turn off the social media, because people can still have access to them through that. Make sure your home is safe. Like, if there's anything you take away from this, not that that's why I'm nice, is because I was bullied. Like, take away that, please.
Well, and like you said, like, growing up in the 80s, right? In the 80s, we didn't have social media.
Yeah.
We didn't have all these other platforms. Whereas, and like you said, you would go home and that was your safe place. But now it's like a whole different world for kids. And sometimes we forget that. Like, kids are going to school, they might be going through those hard things at school, but then they go home and they still can have those hard things through the technology, through the social media platforms. I mean, they even, like, Snapchat or whatever, like, that's their form of like texting for us. And so social media is such a big thing, rumors are, spread
Yeah.
on there, all these different things. And so it's just to, like, the bullying or whatever is just to a whole nother level now. And it's like, you can't get away from it unless you can get away from that device or that connector to all those platforms.
And that's what it means to be a parent now. It sucks. Sorry, too bad. Like, that's what it means to be a parent now.
Hmm.
So it's up to us to put on those boundaries. It goes on the counter when you get home. I'm paying for the phone. So if it dings, I might read your texts, so tell your friends. And they're allowed to have privacy. I understand that too, but also that's something that's earned through you showing me that you can handle this responsibility. And it's up to us, just like I'm guilty of it too, like rolling with the scroll, reading through the comments, liking, posting, sharing. And part of it is my job, but I'm definitely on there more than I need to be. And I can tell when like it's getting to me, I can tell. And so I have to step away. But how hard is it for us to do that, right? It's our job as parents to teach our kids. I don't care if you're grouchy, too bad, go outside and play. Like, get your face out of your phone, put it on the table, and go walk the dogs with your siblings. It's our job. And they're not supposed to like us. We're their parents. They'll like us in the end. Like, I like my parents. I feel like I have a solid relationship with them for the most part. But it's just, people look at me now and they see my confidence now as a parent, because I've been doing this for 16 years. Like, they see me now confident, being able to share my stories. And that's because I've cried enough in front of thousands of people that like, I know I'll be okay afterwards. And I just want people to remember that what you see now is a person that's been in years forming, and you can't just assume things. You can't assume things are easy for people. You can't assume that because, well, Prairie wife, she's so pleasant and cheerful and laughs all the time. Like, everything's great. She has everything. She has 5 kids. How easy for you as I'm struggling here with infertility. And you're right. I do have 5 kids, but I've lost 3. And you can't tell that looking at me, and you need to be thoughtful about the things that you say, because we don't know. And I remember that for myself. I remember that for other people. And I think that's the other impact I take away, is I've seen firsthand the damage wrong words can do. And I'm guilty. I have the best of intentions and I put my foot in my mouth, but be thoughtful about that.
Absolutely. It's just so because I get this too, like how people say, like, you're outgoing and you're cheerful and all those things. And I get different comments along with that, like, positive and whatever. But sometimes people forget that to get to that place, we had to go through like a lot of shit to get there. And that's just not me and you. Like, that's so many, like, it's just a whole ton of people, everyone. Just because someone's happy and outgoing and like enjoying life doesn't mean that it has been an easy road to get there. A lot of times it's been a really difficult road, and just seeing the light on the other side, because living in that is just not meant for us. Like, living in the, you could have, been a victim and stayed in that, I don't know what to call it, but role, I guess, stayed in that forever. But instead, like, and here's where the show, right? You took that pain and you turned it in your power, and now you turned it into your passion. You're sharing on social media, you're sharing through your website, all these difficult things that you've had to go through. Maybe you haven't shared this story, but I mean, you've shared a ton of stories, right? But what's so beautiful through that is, had that hardship not happened, you might not be doing what you're doing now. Sometimes we forget, like, I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. And not to say that that isn't hard or the hardship, like, not saying that had, that was right or fair, whatever. But from that, it's like, you have these 2 paths, and you can grow from that thing, or you can, just spiral in it. And it gets to a point where you're like, this really sucks and this is uncomfortable and I don't want to stay here forever. I don't want to live here forever. So I'm going to choose to grow and grow through it, and sometimes, help through it. So you're helping so many other people by what you do. And it could have been that seed that sparked you from where you were a kid and had to go through all those hardships. And that's why you are a cheerleader now, because you had to go through those hardships. And so it's just really beautiful to like listen to people's stories and be like, wow, it makes sense. Like, here's the connector, right? Because we just think like, oh, they're sharing, they're just super vulnerable, they just share, it's easy for them. Bullshit. I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you I swear on this show.
What?
God, I love you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that?
Yes, I'm all about it.
So we talked about Brene Brown, and another person who I absolutely love is Donald Miller. I don't know if you're familiar with him at all, but he talks about how we are writing our own story. And I think people that know me know that I am adamant about this. There's lots of backstories. I've faced my mortality multiple times. I've had the person next to me die in a car accident, right? Like there's a lot that goes into why I have this attitude. But as far as I know, we are only given one life to live. And when I die, I have told my friends this over and over, especially recently as I've faced my own mortality. At my funeral, I want them to say that bitch lived and she took us with her. Full stop. That is what I want my story to be. I'm going to not take foolish chances. I wear my seatbelt. I moderately go the speed limit, like just being honest. Sometimes I go a few over if I'm running late, but Donald Miller talks about we're writing our own story, and you can choose to be the victim in the story, or you can choose to be the villain in the story, or you can be your hero. And
Yes.
you might be your own hero and you might be someone else's villain. But you have to do the best you can to write the story where you are the hero. And every hero, think about every movie, every story has to go through something where you're like, oh man, don't do it. Don't do it. Or, oh, is she going to stay with him? God, I know it's easy, right? And that's our story. We're special, but we're not unique. Everyone has these fascinating things that they've been through. Like that is why I love what I do, because I get to interview people. I meet all these people and I'm just fascinated at the indomitability of the human spirit to just keep getting up and going. And if you remember that you're not unique, your pain and all of that, other people have that too. It allows us to be so much more compassionate. Yep, that person was a jerk the other day, but take a deep breath and like they might be going through something that we don't know. Now, there's also don't let people walk all over you, right? There's this fine balance in line that we're walking and we're all learning, but just giving other people grace. And that's my mantra, Prairie Wife in Heels. It's all about grit and grace. My job, my mission in life is to teach people to lead a life of grit and grace. Full stop. That sums up who I am and what I'm trying to do. And sometimes I falter and fall along the way, but that's more learning opportunities for all of us in the end, right? So grit and grace and be your own hero. Donald Miller's Brene Brown, Donald Miller, two amazing people.
Dean Graziosi talks about too, the villain and the hero, or maybe he has another word for it, but yeah, the same idea. So that's very cool. I always love to hear about new people and, you know, personal development. I super nerd out about that stuff.
And it's never too late. It's never too late to change your story. Never,
well,
ever,
and two,
ever.
I find this super interesting. But when you were a child, like going back to that, you talked about how you just kept thinking like it's gonna get better. Like you had this end goal where you're like, I'm gonna get through this. It's not gonna be like this forever. And so that helped like propel you, you know, to get to that finish line of getting to high school and it being better. Sometimes we get so stuck in what we're having to deal with and go through that we feel like that's going to be forever. But even you at a young age looking and thinking to yourself like it's going to get better and I just have to get to this end goal. And I mean, we can honestly like take a note out of your book even as a child to be like, okay, what can I focus on? What I'm going through is really difficult, and this can be for adults too. What I'm going through is really difficult, but what can I focus on towards that light? Like what, just get to that goal. How can I get there? What is it going to feel like? What is it going to look like? And to just keep putting that one foot in front of the other to get to that.
Yeah, a mantra nonstop. Like my kids are all 2 years apart, so there was a lot of survival mode going on. And one of my mantras was, this is just right now. This is not forever. This is just right now. And obviously, as you're saying that, I'm just realizing like, that's something I still use all the time. You know, okay, this is today, but looking at the big picture, I love my job. This is today, but looking at the big picture, I want to keep moving forward with having 5 kids because I can't put them back in now. It's too late. Right? Like, okay, I'm training for this half marathon. Today is miserable. I don't want to run. I sucked, but this is just right now. This is not forever. Big picture, I'm doing so much better. And I think we get caught, like you said, the little moments of weariness and soul sucking shittiness. I'm glad we can share now. Now I can really be me and swear, I mean, and Like sometimes life just sucks. Everything happens for a reason, but some things are freaking terrible and that's
Yes.
okay. Like I have a 24-hour wall rule. Like be miserable, eat the ice cream, watch the TV, lock yourself in the bedroom for 24 hours, give yourself the time frame, but then the next day you have to get up and move forward.
Absolutely. And oh God, I love this conversation. So with that, like sometimes we're like, oh, I have to be happy. Just be happy. Even when you're like feeling angry or sad or mad, like whatever. It's so important to let yourself feel your feels. Because if you don't, like you just push it down and you suppress it, and it is an ugly kind of monster later, and it just comes out in a way that you don't want it to. So if you're feeling angry, like let yourself feel angry. Do it alone, right? Do it on your own time,
Don't do harmful
appropriately.
things.
Yes, like journal, scream into a pillow. I mean, I've screamed in my car. I'm sure my neighbors are like, what in the hell is she doing? Like,
Hey, look,
oh
I've
my
done
gosh,
the run and cry thing, like Edness. I'm sure there's so many
absolutely.
people. They're like, wait, I recognize that lady from her running and crying and hyper. Do what you need to do. And I think here I'm gonna
They're
go
like,
back
oh,
to
she's just
parenting.
sweating.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm gonna go back to the parenting. You have to allow the same for your kids. So one of the parenting things I did when my kids were toddlers and now with teenagers and tweens is it's okay to be mad. It's okay to be upset. I understand all these things. You go to your room, find something healthy that makes you happy, be on your phone for half an hour in a healthy way, read a book for half an hour, sleep, take a nap, go for a run, be on the Peloton, whatever. And when you're ready, you come out. I'm not going to tell you when to come out because I don't know when you're ready. And I did that when my kids were 1 year old and having a tantrum. Hey, fine. You tell me when you're ready. I'm putting you in timeout because you can't throw and you are going to have to do what I said, but you come out when you're ready because that teaches them to recognize healthy ways to calm down, recognize what it feels like to calm down and what it feels like to be ready to move forward. Same with teenagers. They're going to be, we all have bad days. Like let them be grouchy in an appropriate way. Sometimes we do have to suck it up and move forward, right? And you need to teach that to your kids too, but also like, I get it. You're having a bad day. Like, okay, here's a couple things that you can do to feel better. Do them. You come back out when you're ready. So we need to give that grace to ourselves. We need to give that grace to our partners, our friends, and our children, but we have to teach them how to do that. By the way, I've been in
So
therapy for
important.
years, just throwing that out there too. Like this was not all like self-taught. Okay. Just putting that out there.
Absolutely. Well, it's just like evolving and learning things along the way. And I love how you say that you've done therapy, because sometimes people are like, therapy, but really it's so important.
Yeah, and there's a lot of content on prairiewifeandheals.com. I'm not a mental health expert, but it's something I'm passionate about. And so there's a resource, Charlie Health is what the name of it is, but they can go and from healthcare experts offering real advice for tweens, teens, men, women, because I think there's a gap in that and it's something I can't do. I'm not a mental health expert. And I know how going to therapy helped me. I'm not in it anymore, but I definitely was for years. After I had my mastectomy, there was a lot of stuff I had to, speaking of dealing with your own mortality, right? There's a lot of stuff I had to process through and I needed help. And that's okay. And I don't now, and that's okay. And I might again.
And that's okay too.
Yeah.
And then, so we can include, if that's a link that you have, we can include it in the show notes too.
Okay.
So if people want to check that out for themselves or their children. But yeah, because we want to give them, our children, that time, but we also want them to be like functioning adults as well. And so we want to give them those tools as they are growing and learning and, becoming individuals, to have these different like tools and resources. So it's important for us to do it. It's important for us to teach them. And it's important for us to show them what we want for them when they are also older. Because sometimes some of these things, sometimes, and I'm guilty of it, where I have showed my child things that I'm like, okay, we're going to talk about that. That wasn't necessarily a healthy way. We're going to focus it on this way, right? Because sometimes the thing is too, like we are reactive to emotion, where really it's like we need a second, we need to process, really need to think about what we're going to say before what comes out of our mouth. And it's just important to not be reactive, but to process and then show up how we want to show up and say what we want to actually say.
So wait, parents are human and sometimes overreact or do things wrong. What? That's the
I
best thing we
mean,
can
not
show our
me. Just
kids.
kidding.
I like that from the, like when my kids were 2, there were times I had to apologize to them because I
Yes.
overreacted. And what are we teaching? We're not teaching them mommy isn't perfect, which we are, but they shouldn't think mom's perfect anyway. We're teaching them, wow, someone I love, admire, and respect loses their shit sometimes, but apologizes and tries to do better. That gives them permission to not try and be perfectionists in the vicious cycle that is. That gives them permission to know that their home is a safe place to have emotions, even if sometimes they're inappropriate, right? Like it's all cyclical. We have to model. And my husband too, like he's big, tough, stoic cowboy. Like he grew up in the, we don't talk about our feelings. Like he is a 5th generation Wyoming cowboy, and the growth I have seen from him, and he has had to work so hard at it to be able to see and share his emotions in front of the kids and also allow them to, without immediately shutting them down because he's uncomfortable and doesn't know how to deal with it. He has learned to apologize to the kids. He's learned to say, I need to walk away for a minute because I know what I'm going to do isn't something I'm going to be proud of later. So you better be praying that I find a way to calm down. Like, but that's so good. And that's another thing we focus on is men's mental health. Like that I have those resources because I see a need for it. I see a need for it. We've got to talk about these things. We have to be willing to say, I'm sorry, I don't know. When someone says, how's your day? A lot of them get confused because I pause for a minute because I really work hard on being authentic and not just being like good as always, which sometimes it is good as always. But there's other times where I pause and people are like, oh, I don't really want an answer to that. Like, I don't.
That was a generic question. Like,
that
how's the
too.
weather?
Yeah, be comfortable with other people being uncomfortable. Like if we give other people permission, like we're creating a safe place. It's just cry in front of a couple thousand people every once in a while. It's amazing how freeing it is, really.
In there.
Yeah. I just cried at church the other day during the petitions and was absolutely mortified. But you know what? I had lots of people come up and be like, I was crying too. Thank you for that. So
sometimes we just like need that permission, and we don't really need it. Like we just need it to be like, yes, I needed that. Did that make sense?
it absolutely makes sense. And I cry over everything. It doesn't, everyone does. We're humans. We feel things. When we stop feeling things and feeling emotionally impacted by what we see around us, there's a problem. And no
That's
change
when you
is
need to
going
be
to
scared.
happen if we don't get upset by things, if we don't feel compassion and joy. Just, stop. Like, I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. Let's just be imperfect together and give each other grace. Like, stop being a jerk about stuff, people.
Imperfectly perfect. I forgot what I was going to say. My
Sorry.
ADHD came into full effect. No, it was just my squirrel brain. It wasn't you. Well, I think there's just so many things like to learn from your story, to learn from like your past story and like where you are now and all the things. And it's almost like I kind of know the answer to this question that I'm going to ask you, but there might be something else in there. So based off like the things that you've had to go through, like your hardships, and I mean, it can even be not just the hardship that you had with that, but any of your hardships, like what successes and accomplishments have you had from that?
My whole entire brand, my career is all about sharing. I started a mommy blog 9 years ago because I had people calling me that I didn't know at 2:30 in the morning, asking for parenting advice and nursing advice because friends of friends gave them my number. They're like, look, she's nice. She can help you. You're going to feel better. So legit, I have finally had a friend that was like, hey, instead of me giving your phone number out, why don't you start a blog? And I'm like, well, what's a blog? And then I started sharing my stories, the true and the supportive and the funny, and then just like fun stuff like fashion, because it makes me happy to look cute, because I never had the money for the cute clothes when I was a kid. It's all making sense now why I like to dress up now and look nice and have all the trendy things. And so I started sharing my stories in the hopes of supporting other women to lead a life of grit and grace. It's turned into supporting their families and our community as a whole. It's a radio show. It's a career. It's funding my family. It's all because I wanted to help other people feel better and not alone, especially because in rural Wyoming, I live outside of town on 10 acres, and I had no friends when I moved here 14 years ago. I didn't know a single person in town, and my husband was gone for 9 years, 5 days a week. And I wanted to feel connected. And I knew there were other people in Wyoming and now worldwide that needed that connection, that authenticity, that feeling of being heard, that I'm not alone. And so that's the good that's come from it, from all these stories, struggles with parenting, being bullied, that need to want people to leave me feeling better, whether they feel better because they know they're not alone or whether they feel better because they're not a hot mess like me. Mission accomplished.
And do you feel like too, like you're helping your younger self, like your past self?
I was thinking just the other day, because I am leaving on Saturday. I'm not sure when you are going to publish this, but I'm leaving for 3 weeks in England. And it is a trip I started planning when I read A Secret Garden when I was in grade school and wanted to be there and be in England. And so I started dreaming then. For our 15-year wedding anniversary, my husband made that dream come true of traveling to England. And then I decided I wanted to go next step, and I wanted to go on my own because my son is 16 years old. And I have been at most gone away from them for 5 days, but 2 of those days are usually travel days. So the most I've ever been away is 3 full days. And I decided when I turned 40 that I was going to go away to England. And the movie The Holiday with Gwyneth Paltrow and Kate Winslet, the little cottage that she rents, that's what I did. I got an Airbnb cottage, and I have at the last minute, 2 friends from high school are going to be joining me for 1 week, but then all the rest of it, I'm on my own.
3 weeks. And wow, how cool. You read that book like as a child. It's so interesting to me, like how different things in our past as children, in our childhood, were implanted in us.
Yeah.
And then really come back like full circle. And we're like, oh, wow.
So as I'm getting ready to go on a trip with 2 people I met when I was 14 years old, the first 2 people I met that were real, true friends after being bullied, I am traveling with those 2 women to England to go do whatever I want. And like, right? I was like, holy cow, never could have imagined ever. And legit, like Zari is the first friend I made in high school and loan. Yeah. These 2 women I'm going to England with for 3 weeks.
That is seriously so trippy. And it's like everything happens for a reason, like what we just said before.
Yep.
And it's almost like revisiting that, like, because I send questions out before I do an interview. People have to like recall these different things like in their life, which can bring up emotions because you're reliving that difficult time that you've had to live through. And then like, so doing that, coming on the show, and now going on this trip that you dreamed about like as a child, that is so cool. And it's like, it's just crazy. Like I always speak like as the universe, like everything happened for a reason. And and the universe is just so amazing how like these different things line up, and just there's just so many gifts to be had. And it's wow, that's insane.
Make it happen. Write your story. There's no reason you can't. Yeah, it took me time. I saved for years and years and years to do this, but write your story. It is your life. Write your story.
Yes, it's your life. Write your story. And if you want to do something, someone the other day said to me like, oh, I'm jealous. Like you're doing this or you're doing that. I'm like, don't be jealous.
Do it.
You can do that too. And that's what I said. I'm like, you can do it as much as I can do it. And that person, she was like, yeah, you're right. And I'm like, yeah, I know I am right. I'm nothing special. If
time
you want
and
something,
effort.
yes, if you want something, like go for it, right? If you've had this childhood dream, do it. Like start, whether you're saving for it or preparing for it, like it doesn't matter. But again, as a child, like, think about that goal, think about what you're going for and go for it. And you can achieve it if you get a plan, and if, stop like saying one day. I used to say that all the time, one day, until my child like straight called me out and I was like, "Ugh," my pride. I was like, "Oh, that hurt." But I
Why
was
not
like, you're
you?
right. I just
Why
say
not?
one day all the time, but I'm not doing anything for that one day. So now I live my life a lot differently because my kid called me out on my shit and said, "You ain't doing nothing." I'm like, "Well, ow." And they're like, "Well, you're right." So
And it takes
yeah.
patience and it takes
Hmm.
planning. This is not like years. I have been saving for years. People say, "Oh, she's going to," yeah, this has been years in the making of focus
Hmm.
and planning and making it happen. As with all things, like 5 kids, like
Yes.
my husband and I sat down and planned. And every 3 years we were like, all right, like we've got 4 kids. Like, we've got 2 kids, right? Like you sit and you plan and you look at the big picture and you make it happen, and don't be afraid to change the plan too, right? Like I
Yes.
never thought,
Hmm.
I worked my butt off to be a teacher. I loved being a teacher. I will never go back to teaching again. I have a great degree. I had it when I needed it. It kills my mother and my mother-in-law that I'm not renewing my certification anymore, that I'm not going to do it, but I don't want to do it. Like my plan has changed and I had it when I needed it and it was there and it taught me what I needed. And I don't have to go back to that just because I thought I would.
And
Change your plan.
literally, you just teach in a different way. So
I
you're
see all the time how all of that fit to where I am now in radio and in
Mhm.
front of large groups and interactive presentations I do. And yeah, I see now, but like to be a first grade teacher again, loved it when I did it. No way. Like,
Hard pass.
nope, no, thank you.
Oh, man, that's awesome. So we're coming up to our wrap up question. And so I always find this one super interesting. Get prepared. But based off your hardships and your successes, how do you think we can do better? Do better as a individual, do better as a community, do better as a society, or all of them? How do you think we can do better?
I think that we need to recognize that everyone has a story. Everyone has hurt, everyone has success, and you absolutely cannot even think you know someone just by seeing them or by meeting them or by what someone else says. And so something I try really, really hard to do, which work in progress, is always assume that other people have the best of intentions. And sometimes you're going to get burned. Okay. Sometimes people don't have the best of intentions, but you have to trust your own instinct and know
Mhm.
that. But to just be a compassionate force out there and be a cheerleader for others. And again, work in progress. There's a lot of judgy McJudgerson that goes on here, but I'm striving every day to just put good out there. And if we all do that, that's going to have a major impact. I have been blessed beyond belief with the reach I have through prairiewifeandheels.com, through social media. And then the gift, it really was a gift of being able to have a radio show where I am on air for 4 hours every day to make people laugh, to connect with our community. And then you add to that, that I get to help all these great charities at events. Like if you are just willing to put positive out there, just try a little bit harder to put aside your opinions and your judgments and just listen to what other people are really saying. The world could be better. And again, work in progress. Okay. If you see me being snappy to someone at Walmart, don't be like, you said. Okay. Work in progress.
Owning the work in progress. And that's all of us. Like, there is no, like, life is really a journey. It's like there's not a destination to your healing or your growth. Like, all of this literally is just a journey, and it's just continuing to do better and then just a little bit better. And it's really about like failing forward and just to keep trying and keep wanting better for ourselves and for our children and for other people, and putting out in the world like what you want for yourself and how you want someone to treat you, to do that same for other people.
So Sabrina Spears is a dear friend of mine. I do a women's conference with her, Poise, Purpose, Passion. And something that she has taught me is, as a people pleaser and someone who wants everyone to like me based on my childhood stuff, that makes a lot more sense. I was never able to say no. It's a hard thing, to the point where I would be a martyr. I got to help this person. And really, I want to just be at home. And, you can be respectful and put good out in the world, but still have boundaries and show other people how to treat you. It's not disrespectful to say, no, I can't watch your kids. That's not disrespectful. That's not rude. That's protecting yourself and your family, which is in the end, your number one thing that you need to take care of. And I think we get lost in this idea of we have to be agreeable. We have to bend and flow, and we can't hurt anyone's feelings by having a different opinion, because that's not nice. No, you can share your different opinion in a respectful way, and that's not hurtful. How they choose to react to you sharing your respectful opinion, that's their deal. That's not your responsibility. But there's a lot of times now in society where people are afraid to draw a hard line and protect themselves, their beliefs, and how they want their family to grow and look, because they don't want to make other people uncomfortable. Well, guess what? Crying makes other people uncomfortable. Me having my arm showing is going to make someone else uncomfortable. I need to make the right choice for me, for my family, and be as respectful as possible. But it's also okay to draw a firm, hard line about how you will allow people to treat you. So, like, I want to put that in there. I think I'm talking about a safe place, and I'm talking about being kind and compassionate, but also you have to be compassionate and kind for yourself too. And that balance is tricky. I get it. Again, work in progress, but I just don't want anyone to think that it's okay to be nice and be positive in the world. You have to let people walk all over you. That's not how it works either.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I call myself a recovering people pleaser as well. So I can totally relate to that. And I actually just today was talking to someone about how they had been working on their boundaries, because you guys, boundaries are the biggest thing for yourselves. The boundaries are the biggest things for your family. Boundaries are the biggest things for you to show up how you want to. Because what's worse is when you say yes to something that you didn't want to out of obligation. Sorry, sometimes words are difficult for me. And just being like agreeable, then you're like, oh, now I got to do this stupid thing. You know, you make all this like bad juju vibes that go towards it when maybe it's a really great thing, but you said yes for the wrong reasons. And so when you say yes to something, you really just, you want to be all into it. So if you're not like, I'm either a hard yes or a hard no. And so, but I can change it to a yes if I want to. So, right, it's good to have those boundaries for yourself. And Brene Brown actually did a study. I think it was, I don't remember, but she was talking about like the most compassionate people were like interviewed, and monks were among those people interviewed. And what she found from those monks was they, some of the most compassionate people, right? Guess what? Those monks had boundaries. If you have boundaries, then you can be compassionate to other people. You can show up authentically. You can help other people. But when we attach, not the good feeling of saying yes to something and just the obligation and then not happy about it, then it doesn't come across in that way, or it just doesn't feel good. It feels yucky. So boundaries are huge. I love how you say that and that you threw that in there, because it is a big one.
And we're responsible for accepting other people's boundaries and not being a jerk about it. I think that's the other half of it. If you are going to set boundaries, one of the most wonderful things that one of my friends did for me is to say, I don't like, it makes me uncomfortable when there's a bunch of people I don't know. So I want to see you, but I can't do it when there's a bunch of people I don't know. So I appreciate you inviting me. Don't take it personally. And for her to be vulnerable enough and honest enough with me to be like, this is a boundary for me, like next level friendship. Like, please tell me that. Yes, I want to hike with you, but I don't want to have 10 other people. I want alone time with you. Like, amen. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Then I will make that happen. So respecting other people's boundaries goes hand in hand with putting your own down. It's not.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. And then like, that person could have ghosted you or done, and then you would have felt like, oh, about it.
Yeah.
Versus
I would have
her
stopped
just saying,
inviting
like,
them because they always said no.
Yes. But instead you're like, okay, I know where that boundary lies. And then you're able to you're both able to have that connection, and then for next time, but then you're inviting her to do something with you. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Cathy, Prairie
Sarah.
Wife and Heels, I am so happy to have you on the show today and for you to share your story with us. Thank you so much, and being vulnerable and just showing up today, but in every day and everything that you do. You're a big deal in our community, and you do amazing things, and I know you're just appreciated by so many people. So
Well,
thank you for
thank
that.
you for giving me this opportunity to connect to the people that are with you. You and I have known each other. You knew me like when I was pregnant, like a couple of kids. Like Sarah and I have known each other a long time. So speaking of cheerleading, like this girl is it, and she knows I have her back. And it's just an honor and a privilege to be here with you in this way. And I'm just excited to see all the good things that you do. And just remember the little people. Okay, just remember the little people.
I'm blushing. It's fine. I'm like the most outgoing shy person. I'm the most introvert out there person, like extrovert. Like I'm just so weird. But thank you. I so appreciate your words. And yeah, we have known each other for a very long time. And it's just very cool to just see each other's journeys just grow and evolve. And it's pretty badass.
It's amazingly badass.
Love it. So tell us how other people can connect to you. My friends, as usual, we'll have the links and all the things in the description below, so you can find her where you need to on whatever platform and whatever way. But Cathy, do tell us where people can connect to you.
So if you like country music, you can listen to me every single weekday morning, 6 to 10 a.m. on My Country 95.5. You can listen on the radio, or if you live elsewhere, you can stream us live from the My Country 95.5 app. It is Drew, my amazing, wonderful, fearless leader and co-host, and I just doing all the things and country music. You can find me anytime, prairiewifeandheels.com. There's usually 2 new posts every single week up there. And then I am on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. You can either just look for Prairie Wife, or my handle is at Prairie Heels on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram.
All the places. Very cool. Well, and I dig your videos. They make me laugh, and you're hot. So it's just nice to look at.
You're hired.
I had so much fun today. Thank you so much for being on. And you guys, if you haven't subscribed, because I never say this, please subscribe. Like the show, like her story today, like other people's stories, check out other people's stories, but do subscribe to the show and keep listening to these people that are doing amazing things and what they came from and where they're going. So you guys, much love, good vibes, and we'll see you later. Bye, you guys.